Welcome members to this month's Business and Culture Committee. I'm going to ask Stephen to read the notice of motion or the summons to the meeting and take the roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. So members, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of Business and Culture Committee to be held remotely via WebEx on Tuesday, the 8th of February at 4 p.m. So we'll take the roll. Councillor Jason Barr. Councillor Raymond Barr. Councillor Shauna Cusack. Alderman Morris Devaney.
Here, Stephen.
Councillor Gary Donnelly.
I'm sure.
Councillor Rory Farrell.
Here.
Alderman Darren Guy. Councillor Sean Harkin.
Here.
Councillor Conor Heaney.
Sure.
Councillor Patricia Logue. Councillor John McGowan.
And Shaw. Stephen.
Councillor Kieran Maguire.
I'm sure.
Alderman David Ramsey.
Here, John.
And Councillor Sinai Barr.
Yes, Stephen.
Thank you, members.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Next item is the statement of remote meetings. So just like to remind everyone that present this meeting in the Guildhall or in attendance remotely, that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeat viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you're consenting to being filmed and to use and storage of those images for broadcasting and training purposes, for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the council privacy notice may be found on the council's website. So the next item is just a declaration of members' interests. If there's any interest to declare, members please do it now, or if not during the course of the meeting, please make it known. Okay, doesn't seem to be any.
On item 14, Connor, I have a slight interest in that. I think one of the units being rented is in a park that I manage, so just making that note for the record.
Thanks for that declaration, Councillor McGowan. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a presentation from representatives from the Millennium Forum. So you're very welcome to the meeting. So I'll hand over to yourselves.
Thank you very much. My name is David McLaughlin. I'm the Chief Executive of the Millennium Forum, and I'm here today with our Chairperson, Martin Bradley. Thanks for allowing us this opportunity to present a short snapshot of the forum as we begin to hopefully emerge. We hopefully emerge from what was a permanent lockdown of nearly 20 months and the unprecedented challenges it's presented. If it's okay with yourselves, I'll take the presentation, and perhaps if you have any questions, Martin or myself could answer them at the end. So if we could maybe have the next slide, that would be great. Again, the next one. So for over 20 years, the Forum has played a major role reflecting the region's ever-evolving cultural, political and social identity. At its core are our people and programme bound by these three central strategic aims. Namely, we look to develop the Millennium Forum as the regional theatre of choice for the people of the Northwest. And with over 1,000 people a day regularly using the forum, you can see how we feel that we've been successful in that, especially before the pandemic hit us. We also want to promote the highest standards of production affordable and to introduce our audience to programming which extends their interest in and understanding of the arts. You know, and the theatre has rightly been lauded over the last 20 years with regards to the shows that we have produced and presented, not only here on the stage of the Millennium Forum, but throughout the island of Ireland, across the UK, and even further afield in the likes of America, Europe, and China in particular. We also want to engage, however, with and support the local arts community and those organisations working in the area of community arts, to work with the other arts venues in the city in particular, and Northern Ireland's regional theatres and audiences, developing initiatives to build the audience base for the arts. Next slide, please. So September 2021 saw the Millennium Forum celebrate 20 successful years of business. In that time, we have won Business of the Year at the local Chamber Business Awards, which I believe was unprecedented for an arts organisation, not only in the city, but throughout the north. It's probably easier to think over that time of acts or names from a performer's perspective who have not performed on the stage, from international stars such as John Prine, Crystal Gale, and Brian Adams, to household names like Billy Connolly and Christy Moore. We lead and we feel we are led by our audience, and we respond to their desires and seek to engage as widely as possible, whilst nurturing nurturing content and future generations of artistic talent throughout our sector. And with that in mind, you can see why since 2001 we've welcomed over 6 million customers to the theatre. Next, please. Just going to have a wee quick look now at building attendance figures. Obviously, these are the figures just before we closed for the pandemic for the year 2019-2020. And that year was obviously curtailed by about 3 weeks because of the pandemic. So it's not a full year of operation. But in the year, we welcomed nearly 324,000 people into our building. 145,000 people approximately came to see an event on our theatre stage, be it drama, panto, music, comedy, whatever. Conference and meetings events attracted nearly 90,000 people. From a community arts education perspective, we had 58,500 people using the building throughout the year. Rehearsals accounted for 16,500 people, and visual arts exhibitions in our piazza and throughout the rest of the building welcomed over 14,500 people. Within our main attendance figures, which are theatre events, by far the largest sections in that are people who attended for panto, for music events, or for comedy. I mean, panto has attracted nearly 30,000 people each year and is becoming our major cash cow from a performance perspective, and was really making strides forward with regards to the financial returns we were making off it before the pandemic hit. This year we had a successful Christmas, but business was down by approximately 42%, and that was an achievement in itself when you looked into the figures and you saw that our schools education element of the panto was down by over 80%, and we actually got wiped out completely from a cross-border perspective, with no schools from Donegal attending this year due to the ongoing crisis in November and December. Conferences, as you can see, are extremely important, not only to us but to the city. We have a close working relationship with Visit Derry and also with the local hotels, and we want to support this huge potential income generator for the city. I mean, but what you can see from those building attendance figures are, how crucially important the arts are to the people of the region. I think a recent Thrive project showed that 98% of Northwest residents engaged in the arts, culture, or heritage, and these figures are clearly backed up by our attendance figures at the forum in 19 and 20 particularly. Next slide, please. So from an economic impact perspective, pre-pandemic, the arts and cultural industries contributed some £8.5 billion to the UK national and regional economies. This figure demonstrated substantial growth year on year by some 10% on the previous year. And you can see that the Millennium Forum, albeit figures from 2010, contributed a substantial amount to the local economy, some £11 million. Culture also contributed some 2.6 billion in taxes. So for every pound of public funding, £5 was generated. And again, our figures from 2010 would reinforce that and actually show a far better return for Derry and Strabane Council from the model that was presented in 2010. which showed that for every pound of council funding we got, we made £10.36, which was a really good return. Next slide, please. Local community arts usage is at the heart of and the centre of all we do. Moving forward, partnerships with the local community will be key to us achieving pre-pandemic trade levels. And you can see when we opened in 2001, 2002, 14% of our programme was from a local community perspective. It grew in 2016-17 to 35%. But this year we're proud to announce that at least 53% of our programme will be from a community art perspective, and that's very, very encouraging. And it's also something that we need going forward, because we feel that over the short term, in the next 18 months, it will be very hard to attract some of the major West End productions that we were used to bringing to the city. So we will have to work with the local community and try and grow the artistic product from that perspective. Next slide, please. Just a wee quick look now at our turnover, and you can see where we stand turnover wise. 2021-22, we're predicting turnover of less than 1.1 million. When we opened in 2001-2002, turnover was 1.3 million, and in the last year before the pandemic, our turnover was 3.4 million, for what we have already shown was an incomplete year. One can hopefully see from this slide the importance of the council contribution at the minute, and it's more important now more than ever. I mean, it ensured our survival over the 20 months off the closure, and it helped to secure the need to look at staff redundancies, which were rife throughout the industry. So we were proud to be able to work for the 20 months and not have to lay anybody off, which was an achievement. You can see that when we opened, the earned income was 70% versus the Derry and Strabane council grant of 433,000, which equated to 30%. At the minute, it's obviously a wee bit skewed, but it's a 60-40 split. That's given the fact that turnover is down substantially, but it does show the importance of the grant to the theatre with regards to rebuilding, let's say, from the ground up, because we accept that won't be easy in the short term, but we will be working hard with many of our regular local, national and international partners to ensure that that a broad and eclectic programme with an onus on the community to ensure our continued prosperity. Next slide, please. Again, just a snapshot here of attendance by location since we've reopened. And you can see, obviously, that the market has grown by some 8% locally from a BT 47 and 48 perspective upon reopening. We've put this down to, for want of a better word, pent-up demand with the restrictions being lifted by government. Also, the fact that the programme had a very local focus, with the likes of Londonderry Musical and the Choral Festival and stuff like that. I mean, Londonderry played for a week and played to over 80% business, which was unheard of with the production of Calamity Jane. But we also were very proactive with our good news messaging from the forum, the fact that we were back in business, and also our messages of reassurance, us being COVID safe, from an air conditioning perspective, from the safety elements that we put in place throughout the theatre, and from the checks that we were doing at the front door and stuff like that. However, if you dig further into the figures, you will see that the non-postcoded Donegal in particular has seen a big drop in attendance, some 30%, from 28% in 2019-2020 to 19% in 21-22. And again, we put this down to the high COVID rates that were in Donegal, the additional tightening of restrictions that were in place in the Republic of Ireland. And I did touch earlier in the presentation with regards to the fact that, we lost approximately 12,000 ticket sales that would normally come in from school bookings and reservations that are made from a Donegal perspective for our pantomime. And if we were being fair as well, we might turn around and say the programming that we had on was very much of a local, flavour, and so it might not have attracted people from, further out within the Donegal areas. But it is something that we will look at, and it's something that we intend intend to market into over the coming months to attract that audience back again. And obviously we put our panto on sale very early this year, and we are very encouraged by the bookings, and we have a lot of bookings coming in from Donegal at the minute, which again is encouraging. Next slide, please. So again, just to have a wee quick look at the employment statistics and give you a snapshot of where we are and show you how difficult things are, you know, from a reopening perspective and stuff like that there. You can see when we opened in 2001, 2002, we had 112 members of staff. We're currently working with approximately 86 staff at this minute in time. We've lost a number of full-time staff to retirement, or people have just moved on to other jobs. Some I have to say outside of the industry, which is a concern, but it's a concern that's been heard, you know, throughout the UK and Ireland, about people who, you know, are working in particular on the technical side of things and who have now found jobs which are more, let's say, family friendly, you know, working 9 to 5 and not, you know, every evening and weekend and stuff like that there. So it is something that we may very well have to address. I mean, obviously as well, with the fact that we were closed for the 20 months, a lot of our younger staff have moved on, and there's a substantial number of them at university throughout the UK and Ireland, and that's, you know, reflective in the part-time numbers being decreased and stuff like that. But we are now actively recruiting in certain areas. We have a large job being interviewed for tomorrow, which is within our development department, and we will also be advertising for jobs technically over the next few months. We are lucky enough in that the shows that we're doing, and the fact that the sector still is, it pains me to say, I suppose, volatile and unpredictable. But we are confident we can work within the staffing levels that we've got at this minute in time, although we do feel that we'll have to address them, you know, and address them within the next 6 to 9 months. Next slide, please. The slide just looks at our inclusivity. We are a theatre for everyone, and as I say, we promote positive attitudes, remove barriers, and encourage participation for people with disabilities. We aim to achieve equality of opportunity and champion the celebration of diversity. We support Derry City and Strabhan's access and inclusion model and its digital resource pack, which serves as a toolkit for everyone to ensure our region is accessible and welcoming to everyone. We were proud to host Ireland's first National Social Prescribing Day conference in March of 2021, highlighting how the arts promotes brain health and improves mental health. And we are currently developing an accessible stage door entrance, platform lift, and accessible dressing room backstage with the support of the City Council. And this is not a small project. It's costing in excess of £30,000, and as I say, couldn't be done without the support of the council, who have supported us on other projects as well. And if we now go to the next slide, and if you can press play on it, we'll give you, you know, hopefully a good idea into what we do. This lasts about 5 minutes, so if you just sit back and enjoy it, and hopefully we can answer any questions that you might have, you know, on it after we finish the presentation. Thank you.
Access and inclusion in the Millennium Forum. We always promote a positive attitude, remove barriers, and encourage participation for people with disabilities. We work towards achieving equality of opportunities and ensuring that diversity is celebrated.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a great experience and it taught me new skills.
I really enjoyed working in the box office, helping out the customers and doing gift vouchers.
Not only through our physical facilities, but through many of the training programs and mentor programs that we have engaged in through the likes of Millennium Forum projects, not only with the Achieve Beyond project, with many others. We recognise this is what we should be about, what we are about. It's all inclusive. We are for the community, with the community, not only the community but the local business sector, the local arts sector, the local art and culture sector. So we're delighted that the participants had a real fulfilling experience.
Adding like different things to do, so night parties for them. like any music, like they're all different, like pop music. I love it really, like learn to DJ and sing to all my friends.
I enjoyed teaching other people the skills that they were really enthusiastic to learn. Really made me more happier.
Our vision. We want to ensure our venue is accessible and welcoming to all. We have won awards in Dementia Friendly Organisation of the Year, Autism Friendly, Age Friendly, Jam Card Friendly, Every Customer Counts, Arts and Disability Equality Charter, and we have installed a changing place facility.
Public interactions, so I was a bit more able to talk to people on a one-to-one skill. I learned a lot of new skills from the Millennium Forum department. That as an actor, it's not just the person on the stage that matters, it's the family and the team behind them, from walking in from the ticket office to the people who usher you to your seat, to the clean-up crew, to the ones who make the popcorn. Every department has its own role that makes the one show work.
I really enjoy working with the staff and showing customers to the seats, because the girls make me more part of their team.
How we do this? We have an access subcommittee and a working group who oversee the implementation for our Access and Inclusion Action Plan. We generate new ideas for projects, ensuring accessibility is at the forefront. The subcommittee will meet regularly with the AAA Access to Arts for All charity here in the Millennium Forum to discuss proposed projects. Proposals and recommendations are made to our Board of Directors for approval.
Through this training, I feel more confident in myself and a goal.
Like making things like JT thing, like some facts, and do lights, doing flexible.
The Millennium Forum scheme, Access Beyond, allowed me the opportunity to volunteer with different schemes that the Millennium Forum run. It gave me extra training, extra skills. It also taught me more about myself, that I never thought I could do this, but with Access Beyond, it actually said, do you know what, actually you were wrong, you can actually do it. And here's how we can teach you how to do it.
The staff are really friendly. It gave me the confidence to DJ myself at the house online.
I love it.
Thanks. Could we have the next slide, please? I mean, so as I say, you can see, you know, those projects are so encouraging, you know, for the staff who work in here. We get so much out of what we do from those projects, and seeing how the young people and the older people who come to the dementia friendly dances and do, you know, come to melodies and moves and stuff like that there, you know, come out of themselves and stuff like that there. It really is life affirming. So it is, you know, and it's every bit as important as the stuff that we put on the stage. But just to move on to the final slide, just some of our future challenges given the fact that we've come out of the pandemic. Sorry, could we go back one? and the future challenges include obviously encouraging audiences back into the theatre to pre-pandemic numbers. Obviously, there are still some concerns from the general public with regards to attending indoor events, and we are noticing, a slight downturn in numbers. It could be for a variety of reasons, but we are putting it down to concerns from a pandemic perspective, because the confidence is only really starting to come back now. Obviously, we need to encourage shows and events to come to the city, and by shows and events, I'm particularly talking about the major West End productions that have a huge overall, benefit for the city from a hotel's perspective, and from a restaurant's perspective in the evening, people coming out and making an event of it. And we need to also look at reopening our own in-house restaurant. It was closed during the pandemic. It was run by a restaurateur who has now decided that he can't reopen it himself. So we're going to start actively trying to find somebody to reopen the restaurant, because, as I say, with 300,000 people coming into the building each year, it is a profitable business, and it did very well in 2019, 2020, in particular with the conferences and graduations and events like that we had on. We need to urgently reevaluate our green energy options and to mitigate against the current utility crisis. As an example, our electricity bill in December was nearly £16,000. In December of 2019, which was our last full December of operation, it was £11,500. So it's increased by 30%. But when you then factor in the usage of electricity, which in December of 2021 was approximately 35% down on 2019, it's actually doubled. So our electricity, has doubled in 2 years. And when you spread that across 12 months, you can see how it will be, a barrier to a lot of things that we may want to do, because we feel that, our normal electricity bill would have been somewhere in the region of £100,000. We know you're probably looking at £150,000 to £160,000 on electricity, and that's before we factor in gas and oil on top of that. So we will be sort of entering into discussions with some organisations, looking at solar energy, that sort of thing, to see what the options are. And finally, we want to obviously engage in proactive plans and partnerships to tackle the staff and skills shortage. We believe, that there is a skills shortage in Northern Ireland in particular from a technical theatre perspective. So we may want to, to look at what we do going forward with that, to try and encourage young people into the business and give them, a challenge, from a technical perspective. Next slide, please. And that's really it, folks. So I'll pass it over to you, and if you've got any questions, hopefully we'll be able to answer them. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, David and Martin, for that very impressive presentation. And as you said, we're hopeful as we emerge from this pandemic that things can only get better. Some extremely impressive work going on there. And I just want to verbalise for anybody watching that Councillor Logue and Cusack have both declared interests as members of the board of Theatre Trust. So I have a number of indicated speakers here, so we'll just bring them in the order that they're here in the chat box. So Councillor Donny.
Chair, and thanks David and Martin for a very extensive and detailed report. There's a lot of good work going on there, and we're talking about removing barriers to encourage participation, to make sure it's inclusive and equality of opportunity. It's very regarding disabled, it's very disabled friendly, and it's very proactive and progressive in that regard, and that has to be commended. It's my understanding the council commits over £400,000 in repairs money. I'm not sure exact amount. If I'm wrong in that, I'll stand corrected, or somebody could tell me. But in any case, that is a significant amount of money, and many of these ratepayers come from areas of high levels of deprivation, and they struggle on a daily basis. You know, you just talked about there about paying electricity and that, you know, and these is some of the, you know, the burdens that people in my community have to face on a daily basis, and many can't afford to attend events in you know, the Millennium Forum, and they would love to attend them if they have, if it's a family with a number of children, you know, that will be an added expense. My question is there any measures, or perhaps planned measures, if there's not, to facilitate, you know, the removal of, you know, when we talk about, you know, we could remove the financial barriers to encourage participation, particularly from families who have, you know, low incomes? Thank you.
Okay, Martin and David, if you don't mind, I have about 6 indicated speakers here. I'm going to let those on first, and maybe you come back and answer the questions at the end, if that's okay. So, Councillor Doyle.
Chair, for letting me in, and thanks, David and Martin. Really inspirational work going on in the Millennium Forum, and particularly the presentation there with regards to the access and inclusion work that's going on is to be commended. I have 3 questions, and I'll just jump straight on if you don't mind. And it almost relates to what Gary had asked. Granted, you know, it's a very valuable resource in the city, but there is a huge financial obligation from council in terms of the service level agreement. What plans is there, if any, to reduce the amount that council actually pays in terms of value for money to the ratepayer? I noticed in terms of the attendance that consistently from at least from the 2 dates, 2 years that you showed, that the non-postcode in Donegal attendance was 28%, which was always higher than both sides of Derry, and that it doesn't necessarily concern me, but it would be interesting to see what plans you might have to engage people, maybe along the lines of what Gary had mentioned. And last question, a bit of a hot topic in terms of funding from DFC over COVID, or other organisations related to the executive. Did you have any support in terms anything other than furlough? I would be interested to hear about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know quite a few indicated speakers, so I'm going to take another 2, and then I'll let you back on to answer those, just to do justice to the questioners and to yourselves, and then we'll come back to the final number of speakers. So, Councillor McGowan.
Can I first thank Martin and the speaker there, who really give a good picture about what's happening in terms of the Millennium Forum. The Millennium Forum is fair to say it's become a vital part of the city in terms of its arts and its culture offering. I think your programs in the last number of years have been very well received, and I really picked up on the comment of 11 million. That's a great tonic for the local economy, and it's, you know, speaking from my own experience, it's very difficult sometimes to balance the books on these things, because quite often you bring millions of pounds to the city, but it's very difficult. They often make money in terms of selling tickets at the door. So I also want to say to you, David, it was a remarkable achievement hitting that 1.1 million in that year that it was. So and seeing over 50% of the participants from outside the city, that's what drives hotel rooms and restaurants. And I don't need to say that to David or Martin. I'm delighted that with your access and inclusion program, I know a family member that has taken part in that, and it's been nearly life changing, seeing the confidence they've developed from it. And I think it shows a really good balance in terms of what the Millennium's trying to do. It's trying to build audience. It's trying to be part of our tourism strategy for the city, and it's also becoming very, very good at developing the community arts. And seeing that 53% of that target was community arts was also very reassuring. What I will say before I finish is, you know, that Deirdre Hargreaves has insisted that we need to develop a local arts strategy, and I see the forum as being a centre piece of that. So well done. It's been a difficult year. I've no doubt the next couple of years are going to be more challenging, but we're very finely placed, and I'm surprised at that £1 million turnover. Very little people I know in the arts were hitting 30-35% of their turnover. So it's a good work of the staff and the board, and you're to commend it on that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor Cusack and then bring yourselves back in again before I move on to the other indicated speakers. So, Councillor Cusack.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Welcome, David and Martin. Good to see you. It's been a long time. I know the management and staff of the Millennium Forum do an amazing job, and they have been absolutely outstanding in how they've kept driving forward through these past really, really difficult years. I know you've been banging your head against the wall so many times and worried about the future for not only the Millennium Forum itself, but more importantly for the staff and the people whose jobs depend on it and its success. And I've seen this firsthand because obviously I have the privilege of being on the board. It's just a fact that if we want tourism here to thrive in the city, we need a reason for people to come to visit, and we need things for them to do while they're here, and we obviously need a reason for them to return. And the first-class entertainment, exhibitions, events, projects that the Forum has provided over the past 20 years has done that. It really has. You know, that's the linchpin for a lot of people coming here, especially from Donegal. That's why they're coming from Donegal. They're making a night of it. They're staying overnight. They're going to the Millennium. They're seeing the show. They're bringing their family. They're bringing their friends. So that's so important. We discussed the amount of jobs that the Millennium has created, and it's no mean feat to try and attract these first class entertainment, because you know they say Derry is a small city in the bigger scheme of things. You've got to really put on a hard sell in order to get these people to come here. But once they come here, then that creates a domino effect. Other people want to come as well too, and then that gives us as citizens of the city and district, you know, something to be proud of and something for us to go to as well too. We're always crying Derry gets nothing, but no, the Forum has been brilliant at actually bringing first class acts here, so well done. And I would like to personally and on behalf of the SDLP thank the staff and yourselves for your tenacity, your achievements despite all the major hurdles that you have faced recently. And I'm really looking forward to more of this can-do imagination and creativity, because what you've actually done is you have put Derry on the arts map. So well done and thank you.
Okay, David, Martin, do you want to try and respond to some of those questions, and then we'll move on to the other people who want to come in and comment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And again, thanks for all the positive comments from all the speakers. It's really worthwhile to hear that, and it's great to actually get, you know, face to face with yourselves and go through some of this stuff. In terms of the funding from Derry City and Strabane Council, yes, the funding is significant, and we are very appreciative of it. You know, that £440,000. But I think you need to put that into context. In a normal year, that would only equate to around about 15 to 20% of our total income. You know, theatres are incredibly expensive buildings, and you've heard David just give one example of the electricity costs. They're incredibly expensive buildings to maintain and to run. And that funding that the levels of the council set, you know, 20 years ago and has never increased. If you were to apply inflationary cost to that, it would be 1.8, 1.9 million if we were to apply the original funding from council and increase it, as I say, and with inflationary costs. So whilst the funding from council has not increased, certainly the running costs have still increased. We're dealing with those inflationary costs and we've managed them, and that's why we have been have a diverse range of income from our own earned income, from other funding. But we're, again, I take on completely on point Gary's comments. You know, we live in a city that there is high unemployment, there is high deprivation. And that's going to get worse over the next year. We see the hike in national insurances. We see the stealth tax. We see the higher demand on food banks. We see all of those indicators that it is going to be very, very tight for people. So we are trying our absolute utmost to keep our ticket price down to the best levels we can. And that's why we're looking at reducing our costs through green energy, through different sources of funding, and through different mechanisms that we can employ, so that actually the cost putting on these shows and running these buildings, we can try to reduce, and therefore pass that reduction ultimately onto our customers who are buying tickets through the door. And we also work very closely, as David said, with a lot of community groups, because through the community groups we can engage directly. Through our skills officer, we can engage directly with, you know, people who are suffering high deprivation, and engage with the families and encourage the schools and the community groups to bring, you know, their contacts forward, and we can work as well as we can to get as many low paid income families through the door and participate in the theatre. In terms of, there was a question there from Emmett in terms of the DFC funding. I was on the task force set up by Mr. Hargey during the summer to advise on, you know, venues and events, and subsequently was asked to advise on the executive committee. And I have to say that there was no funding from anywhere to venues throughout the pandemic. The approach in the rest of England was that venues were getting funding, and the Chancellor at the time said that actually individuals were getting enough support through the, you know, the SEISS programs and all those other individual support programs that were initiated. Here, the Arts Council took a very different approach to say that they would support individuals, which I fully support, by the way, 100% behind that. I mean, the individuals saw their incomes just decimated overnight, so it was important, and I fully support that. But there was no funding available to venues, and if we hadn't had the furlough schemes, then not just the Millennium Forum, but venues across Northern Ireland would be closed now, they'd be shut. We were fortunate that we had the furlough money, and I say we're very, very appreciative and fortunate that we had the money from Derry City Council. Without that fund, or sorry, Derry City and Strabane, I'm showing my age here now, but Derry City and Strabane Council, if we hadn't had that funding, we'd have been laying off 96 staff. Let's make no mistake about it. The Arts Council, I mean, I made the argument on the task force that certainly we must support individuals, but as venues, we employ individuals. You know, I have 96 individuals employed by the Millennium Forum. If we don't get the funding, then those individuals will suffer as well. And that has now been recognised. And only last month, there's funding made available, a small amount of funding made available for venues who are trying to recover economically. But also, you can't close a building like a theatre for 20 months and then reopen. Will the lights come on? Will the sound work? You know, will the air conditioning work? And we have to have all these checks on now for COVID. I mean, there's been a huge expense just to reopen the building. But I think finally there has been some recognition, and certainly in the 9 recommendations made by the task force, that is certainly high on the agenda there. So I'll stop. Maybe David wants to add to some of those comments.
Well, if maybe I could touch on what Councillor Donnelly was talking about. I mean, I feel, you know, having worked from the old Rialto days, running the Rialto and the Foyle Arts Centre for the City Council through to the Millennium Forum now, that this council and this organisation, from a Derry Theatre Trust perspective, try their very best to make sure that the tickets are as affordable as possible. And, you know, as an example, our pantomime tickets are the cheapest tickets that you will get to see a pantomime on the island of Ireland, north or south. We recognise that there are obviously groups, you know, of people who we can't, for want of a better word, help from a perspective. But we were in 2020 looking at various projects to lead into the 20th anniversary year, where we had a couple of people who were interested in sponsoring some events that we were looking to do, which were going to offer tickets at a $5 to encourage new audiences in. We had also been involved with some of the groups from a Northern Ireland perspective, such as Thrive, who had offered cheap tickets over the last 5 or 6 years to encourage new groups to come in. But we do work with all the local community groups, from, you know, Shantala through to you know, to the waterside, with regards to trying to bring our audiences in. And we have very many projects which we do at the forum, and we do them at no cost. I mean, all those accessibility projects that you saw on the video have no charge attached to them. We go out and we find sponsorship, for example, for the dementia tea dances, you know, and people from Craigan, people from Shantala, people from Top of the Hill, people from all over the waterside will come to those events. We run our summer youth musical, we run our summer interact art festival, and we run numerous events throughout those, and they're all at no cost. So you sign up or you audition for the summer musical, and we've done that deliberately for the last 15 years and made sure that we don't put barriers up, such as a financial barrier. So we are very proactive with regards to that. I mean, but obviously it's about, I mean, the word was used earlier on, I can't remember by who, I think it might have been Councillor Doyle, or Councillor Cusack, who talked about balance, and that's what we're trying to, that's what we have to do for a building this size, because you have to understand, you know, as much as we're based in Derry, we're a regional theatre, because a theatre this size couldn't just service Derry, as you can see from those attendance figures, you know, where we bring in around about 42-43% of our audience from the actual city itself. So, you know, we have a much larger sort of reach than just a local community theatre. And we have to be careful as well with regards to all our other, you know, colleagues, you know, be it the Playhouse or the Nair Centre or the Waterside Theatre, you know, that we're not stepping on their toes and interfering with what they would be there to primarily do. I mean, you know, the Playhouse has a wonderful community project, you know, that goes on throughout the year. The Nair Centre does great education work. So, you know, we have to tread a line there with regards to, you know, supporting what other arts organisations are doing throughout the city and not sort of, you know, stepping on people's toes. We are a not-for-profit organisation, so that does sort of hamstring us a little bit with regards to, you know, how we make money, because we're not, you know, we're a not-for-profit charitable organisation. So, you know, we always have to try and come in at year end, you know, on a zero bank balance, and that's difficult. So it is. And we found, you know, a few years back that we were punished by the likes of the Arts Council because we had been performing reasonably well, you know, pre City of Culture, you know, and had basically got our grants cut because, as the Arts Council would have put it at the time, we were performing so well that we didn't need the money, you know, which was not really the case. But you know, it's something that we have to deal with, you know, and I think Martin touched on it, you know, from the pandemic in particular, you know, our support, other than the furlough and the city council money, you know, what wasn't brilliant. You know, we got a small amount of funding, you know, as did a few other arts organisations throughout the city. But when you compare it to what the rest of Northern Ireland got, and in particular what some of the arts organisations in Belfast got, it was a pittance. But I don't think this is the right forum to discuss that now, because I know it's been discussed, you know, on a number of levels by this council, and the council have become more proactive. And it was also very encouraging that Minister Hargey was very supportive of the disparity in funding between, you know, Derry and the rest of Northern Ireland in particular. So I'm hoping that going forward there will be more opportunities to tap into funding, you know, from that perspective for groups throughout the city.
Okay, David, thanks. Listen, I've three further indicated speakers. Let me bring them in now, and we're almost coming up to an hour on this, so we do need to have people keep their questions or comments brief, and appreciate if Martin David could do the same in the responses. So, Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and I'll be very, very brief. And look, I'd like to welcome David and Martin to the meeting today, and a wonderful, fabulous presentation there on how the Millennium Forum works, and look, the difficulties and the challenges ahead. You know, I think we're all very much aware of the fabulous shows produced and presented in the Millennium Forum, and you know, it really complements and supports our local arts and cultural community out there. And look, when we look at the video, that short video that was there, what you see there is people enjoying themselves and being very, very confident to go on a camera and be able to speak very confidently. And I have to say, well done to everyone who spoke there. But when you look at the Millennium Forum, brings at full tilt, it brings in over 300,000 people a year. That has to be commended. And you know, when you look at all that, and you know, as you move out, and we know the last 2 years have been difficult with the COVID pandemic, and look, I understand, our party will understand, DEP understands the challenges ahead. It's about getting people back to the Millennium Forum safely and the right environment there. And you know, we're not out of the woods yet, but we're moving in the right direction. Hopefully that continues. And I do take on board the issue regarding the serious cost and you know, heating and energy at the moment. It's affecting everyone, and especially big businesses like yourself. But look, all I want to say, I don't have any questions for you, as to wish you well as you come out of the COVID. And look, hopefully you're back to normality again and having full functional shows and full capacity again. But well done from myself. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to David and Martin. The reference was made there to the funding coming from the city and district council, and I stress district. A lot of what is very slick presentation, by the way, and thank you for it. A lot of what has been said is referring to the city of this and the city of that, the benefit to the city and the hotels and all the rest of it. But of course, the 440,000 that comes from the ratepayers comes from ratepayers throughout our district, city and district council area. I noticed, for example, in the market attendance comparison, there's absolutely no mention of BT81, which is part of this council area. And I wondered, well, why not? You know, why is it not mentioned with regard to audience attendance? And of course, where I live, the Street Arts or the Alley are more likely to be theatres of choice, and perhaps there's something there. That whole issue of benefit to the area, could you outline the benefit of the Millennium Forum beyond the city? You know, what benefit is it to somebody in Newton Stewart, somebody in Castleberg, where I'm from, or Cyan Mills, or you know, the areas beyond the city boundaries? Because, as I say, the funding does come from ratepayers throughout the district. I noticed there in the access program, it went through pretty quickly on the video. Very impressive, by the way. I think you've referred there on the access program to 663 membership. You know, what would the postcode distribution be of that membership? Then I think there was something below that about an older membership of an older thing of 850 membership or whatever. You know, so how much of an outreach is there beyond the city from the Millennium Forum? And I tend to agree with Councillor Donnelly in his opening remarks there, that from a ratepayer's perspective, there's a desire that I detect from ratepayers in my area that the council contribution can be cut down. I understand where you're coming from and the explanations that you've given.
But can you bring your remarks to a close, please?
Yeah, well, that's the sum of it. It's the benefit beyond the district, the city boundaries. Thank you, Chair, for your forbearance.
Two further indicated speakers, then I'll bring these back briefly, and then we'll wrap on this. So, Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Martin and David today for coming in and sharing with us. And I think that this is exactly the platform that you should be having, because I think the insights today have been very helpful in terms of, I think, for councillors thinking about the role that the Millennium plays. And thank you for all the wonderful things that the Millennium has to offer. You know, there's fantastic events there, and it's great to see growing community involvement. My younger brother Kevin is, you know, loves going to Stage Beyond every week, and what a brilliant organisation that is. And you know, that's just part of what happens down at the Millennium Forum. So I'm going to be very quick here. I mean, I do find it stunning that you didn't get any help from the executive and from the communities department. And I find it stunning because we know that the communities minister handed out £1.5 million to the Royal County Down Golf Club, who did not need it. And we're talking about what we described as an iconic institution here for Derry and for the Northwest. And the fact that that's not on the radar is just disgraceful to me. So there's something wrong there. And you're right, we've had a lot of discussions about the structural inequalities, about that the arts and culture sector faces here in the Northwest. And I just think that this is a further example of that, and really underscores the fact that, you know, it's been people in the arts and culture sector that have led this campaign, that took it to the Arts Council and challenged them on it, and took it to the minister and said, there's a fundamental problem, and they've now acknowledged it, but nothing has been done yet. And I think that that's the key thing. So yeah, look, that's astonishing.
Second thing is commend yous on not seeing any of the workers there be made redundant during what I'm sure was a very hard couple of years. Look, the first instinct for some business organisations was to throw people to the wolves straight away. And I'm hoping, I'm looking at the number of people who are part-time now, and I'm hoping that as you get busier and we get back to normality, people will get back into full-time roles and all that stuff. You spoke yourself about the challenges people are facing. That the last thing I would just concur with then that the other people have raised is just about, thinking about the challenges people are facing in terms of access and being able to go and enjoy the great offerings at the centre. So hope at the forum. So hopefully, look, want to wish you well going forward, and hopefully we'll see money coming in and funding available for what's on offer there to expand and grow. Thank you.
Okay, and finally, Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, David and Martin, for coming. And I wasn't going to speak on this item at all, but somebody mentioned the funding that comes from the Arts Council and DFC, and I think David was very diplomatic in his use of language. But everybody in this committee knows the crack. So in November 2020. Ulster Orchestra, the MAC, the Lyric and the Crescent got 620 grand from the Arts Council, and that was rubber stamped by the Sinn Féin Communities Minister at that time, Carol McCullen, to aid with reopening plans. And there was nothing similar went to any organisation in this city, and there was no apparent process behind it either. So that tells a tale about how the arts and culture sector in this city is treated as a second-class organisation when it comes to organisations that are viewed as too big to fail in Belfast. So a number of councillors have mentioned, we need to get this right. We need to fight for organisations and individuals across our city and district. And we've asked that the DFC Minister come here and tell us what she's going to do differently in terms of an arts and culture strategy. And we're still waiting for them to turn up. So I'd be keen to get an update on when that's going to happen. But well done, folks. He's provided a fantastic service for people right across the city and district and for visitors alike. So thanks very much.
Okay, Martin and David, do you want to respond there to the questions asked, and then we'll...
If I can very quickly come in with regards to Alderman Hussey, we are very proactive outside of the city with regards to, as I touched on, the community events that we do, which bring people in. We don't put barriers up if you live in Strabane with regards to coming to our discos for people with disabilities or dementia-friendly tea dances, and we actually proactively go to community groups within those areas and try and encourage them to bring people to the theatre. The shows that you see on the stage of the Millennium Forum are there for everybody and are actively marketed within all areas, from a, say, 30-40 mile catchment area, and sometimes on the bigger shows an even larger catchment area. And we work with a lot of community and education groups in the likes of Strabane. I can think of, for example, we work with I've lost my train of thought. We work with Class Act up in Strabane, and we worked with a local group from Strabane over the summer there previously, because we were not doing education work ourselves, who came down and did a number of workshops in August. So we do try to stretch out as far as we can, but I mean, obviously the thrust of the theatre is what we do within the let's call it the four walls of the theatre itself, and about attracting audiences to come and see shows or come and participate in things that we have going on in here. So I mean, I don't know if that helps, Alderman Hussey, but I mean, obviously we'd be happy to sit down and engage a bit further, and see if there's anything that you think that we could do to improve the catchment area. I mean, and obviously the reason why BT 81 wouldn't be included in that is obviously because the audiences coming from there would be less than, say, the 2%. from a Coleraine perspective, but I can double check that and get back to you on it. But we wouldn't have excluded BT 81 if it had been, say, more than 3 or 4%, I don't think.
Okay, listen, thank you very much, David and Martin, for those responses and that excellent presentation, as a number of members have commented on. Excellent work going on, and keep it up. As I said at the outset, hopefully as we emerge from this pandemic, your work will just increase. So thanks very much again for coming in and presenting here. And feel free now to log out, and you're welcome to watch the rest of the meeting on YouTube if you wish. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, if I could move on to the next item, which is chairperson's business, and I have 3 items of chairperson's business here. The first is obviously the fantastic achievement and win of Steelstown Brian Oaks at the weekend. It just builds further on their already fantastic season. They won an All-Ireland for a dairy club, particularly a city club, is amazing, and I'm sure the entire city are very proud of them and what they've achieved. So I'm sure others might also want to echo the sentiments, and I thought it was important that we did this as the first committee since that achievement, and I also trust that the mayor will appropriately recognise the achievements of the club. So a number of people have indicated they come in on that. So Councillor McGowan first, please.
Well, Chair, I'm very proud that I'm councillor in Ballyarnett, where Steelstown is from. Congratulations on their All-Ireland final. I think everybody was tuned in on Sunday. It was a very dominant display, and I think the last 30 minutes when they were down to 14 men, everybody was fearful of an upset. But I think the thing that left me, the thing that I'm left with most is the speech from the club captain, Neil Forrester, where he said Steelstown will never let Brian Oak's spirit die. He will be with them all the time. So, I mean, it sums up everything that's good about GAA. It's about the people, it's about the parish, it's about the camaraderie amongst a group of players. So well done, and I really hope they enjoy their success. And just also wanted to say it was a double weekend, because on the Saturday night we had young Brooke Scullion from Balahi, who became the entry for the Eurovision for Ireland, and there was a youngster from Derry, Darrell Coyle, was also in the final. So it was a good weekend for Derry in music and in sport. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McGowan. Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I would like to echo your remarks and the remarks of Councillor McGowan. At this meeting last month, I paid tribute to the entire team at Steelstown when they won the Ulster Championship. And in my remarks, I said, they've got the semi-final in 2 weeks, and they've got the final 2 weeks after that. And lo and behold, they've gone and done it. I was over the moon that they won the Ulster Championship. The first team from this city to do so. So for them to actually go and win the All-Ireland is such a magnificent achievement. So from the SLP and on behalf of the SLP, I just want to extend our congratulations to the entire team, the entire club structure, and all the supporters. So amazing for the city and amazing for Ballyarnett, where the team are based. So well done to everybody.
Okay, Councillor Donnelly.
Yeah, thank you. Look, just to echo the previous sentiments, what an achievement. I was there last night when the team came home, and what a buzz. Just a feeling of excitement, a very good news story, for want of better words. In a time where we don't have much to cheer on. But one thing that struck me was the amount of young people that had taken part in the celebration. So well done, Brian Oakes, and keep it up. Thank you.
Okay, and the final speaker is Councillor Hargan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to add my voice to the congratulations to Steelstown. The match itself was absolutely fantastic performance. You know, there's so much talent in that team, and it's not a surprise that they went so far and done so well. And then just the you know, the achievement. It's great to see the achievement so well marked and appreciated right across the city and the district. I was watching them celebrations, and it's clear that, you know, the spirit around the club is absolutely amazing. The captain's speech spoke to the challenges and that they've came through, and it's just wonderful for everybody to watch them doing this. And I'm sure they'll keep going now, and this is going to have a big impact on this on football right across the city and the district. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks everybody for that. Going to move on now to the second item of Chair's business, more serious affair. It's in the political pre-election stunt that's been pulled by the DUP and their minister Edwin Poots in breaching international law by ending the checks at the ports that were operating as part of the protocol. Although the High Court has ruled that the checks should continue, this is only until the judicial review into the matter can be heard next month. If the protocol is breached, this would cause huge damage to our local economy and undermine the excellent work that's been done by Foyle Port. Last night, Belfast City Council passed a motion to take legal action to challenge the actions of Minister Poots. Last night, it was also supported last night by Newry Morning Down, who are coming in alongside Belfast. Therefore, I'm bringing a proposal to this council today, and it's entered into committee section earlier. I would appreciate if they could put it on the screen. Okay, I'll give people a chance to read that and ask for a seconder.
I'll second that, Connor.
Okay, everyone's had a chance to read that. I don't have much further to add. It's all explicit in the proposal. It's now been seconded. So I am asking that members here support us joining the proceedings with Belfast City Council on that. So if there's anyone else want to come in to comment on that, please indicate now in the chat box. Councillor Devaney, or Alderman Devaney, apologies.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in on this issue. It is a topical issue at the moment. And from our party, when we look at the protocol, it has created an Irish Sea border down the Irish Sea. And, you know, when we look at our statistics and financial figures that we're getting from businesses, the protocol is causing severe harm to many businesses out there. And, you know, not even businesses, but people who would shop online generally, who maybe can't go to shops. We can't get our products over now from the United Kingdom, and we think that is wrong. And when you look at the situation, Chair, that we're losing 2.5 million per day because of this, and you know, we look at those issues, and we look at the many concerns and around that the protocol is. And what we're saying here, and I'll be very clear here, Chair, is there is not one unionist that supports the protocol. I haven't heard any from any unionist party from the 4 parties that support the protocol. And let's look at the protocol, Chair. We were the party that championed our abstention, you know, the issues, raised the issues and against it. The SDLP, Sinn Féin and Alliance were calling for the protocol to be implemented and said it couldn't be changed. But despite the arguments of those three parties, the DUP were able to bring Europe and the British government together, and they had discussions, and there was reprieve on quite a number of issues. And I think that may be lost in the mirror here, Chair. But I believe this is only a stunt by Sinn Féin. And, you know, this really, the Northern Ireland Protocol, threatens the political and economic stability of Northern Ireland. And, Chair, we will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Chair. And Chair, I'm going to declare an interest as a commissioner in Foyle Port. But I'm going to say that Brexit had the potential of being catastrophic for this part of Ireland, and I think most people in the chamber will acknowledge that. And that's no different to Foyle Port. Some of the warnings that that we were receiving was just that a hard Brexit would have catastrophic implications to the port and the port trade. Like most businesses that are operating in this council area, the port doesn't recognise the border, and neither does the huge amount of trade that it attracts. And in fact, Foyle Port is the recognised harbour authority by both government institutions in this island. Chair, I know Alderman Devaney talked about that nobody wants there's no unionists that want the protocol. The reality is that in Foyle Port's perspective, 40% of the trade that the port does is on a cross-border basis. So that would have real implications to if that 40% of trade was lost, that would have real implications to the jobs that are provided at Foyle Port, but it would also have massive implications to the hundreds of people that depend on the supply of goods. And I'm talking about supplies like agricultural products, like animal feed and fertilizer, the oil, heating oil, and the petrol for cars. That those essential items are allowed, the free trade of those essential items aren't being hampered because the protocol's in place. So one of the fears and I suppose the reality of Brexit is that a hard Brexit would have left Foyle Port becoming one of the most isolated ports on these islands, and it would have further isolated the northwest region as a whole. So, and for that reason, Foyle Port have engaged extensively with every level of government around the implications of Brexit, and a lot of the protections within the protocol were hard fought for, and they were hard fought for by the team at Foyle Port and by a lot of the business community along the border corridor. So my fear is that these hard fought protections that have been secured by the protocol could be undone at a whim of Minister Putz. So I believe that we should support the motion that you put forward. I feel that there's in terms of a Foyle Port perspective, they've been very clear around how essential it is that there's free trade right across Ireland, and that's something that we need to be conscious of whenever this is being discussed and decided on. And if there's anything that this council can do to support Belfast City Council in their efforts, we should be supporting it and supporting the businesses within our council area. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. You know, there's many businesses who have done well from the protocol. they've seen an increase in their profits. But there's also a lot of businesses have seen a decrease and are struggling. I remember a few nationalist businessmen in the city saying to me that it just shouldn't be loyalists that's out protesting against this protocol. We all should be, because it'll hit us all down the line at some stage. There's no doubt it's divisive. And as Alderman Devaney stated, there's no unionist could support the protocol, no matter what form it comes in. But I just want to check this last bit, and as in, is there not court proceedings going on against the minister already to do with this? And I apologise if I'm wrong, but I have been out of the country. I didn't get back, so I haven't really been following it that much. But I thought there was legal proceedings going ahead. So why are we getting involved with Belfast City Council? Is it electioneering time, and one party's trying to outdo the other because it was an electioneering stunt that caused this hassle? It seems to me it's another electioneering stunt that's looking to try and rectify it. Thanks, Chair.
Great, Councillor Farrell's next.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Happy to support on behalf of the SDLP. And I just want to take this opportunity to debunk some of the rubbish being spouted by Alderman Devaney. He's claiming that the protocol is costing the North £2.5 million a day. And when his Economy Minister, Gordon Lyons, was questioned on the sort of probity of those figures, he hadn't got an answer, because do you know what? They're made up. It's just hot air. They claimed that they came from the Fiscal Council. There was no research done by the Fiscal Council that suggested anywhere near £2.5 million lost revenue per day. The newsletter article was written by this guy, Esmond Burney, who's a member of the Fiscal Council. So I place no store whatsoever in this £2.5 million per day. And Alderman Devaney also states that no unionist supports the protocol. I would ask him to ask his former colleague, Simon Hamilton, who was former Health Minister, former Finance Minister, former Economy Minister, who's now Chair of the Belfast Chamber of Commerce, and he sees the benefits of it. It sort of enraged Jeffrey Donaldson quite a bit, but here, Hamilton is a realist. He sees the protocol works and it's necessary. And we've got the protocol because the DUP forced Brexit on us. That's why we have it. So Alderman Devaney needs to get on to the real world. This anti-protocol rhetoric, it's smoke and mirrors. It's an election stunt from the DUP because they are flailing in the poll and they are desperately trying to regain support. So we are supporting this motion and just challenge every single thing that the DUP say about this, because they have no credibility whatsoever. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Hussey, you want a point of clarity?
Point of clarity on the motion. I'm not a member of the committee, Chair. This council joins with Belfast City Council. Exactly what is meant by joins with? Is there a financial commitment in that? Thank you.
I'm not sure if Philip's on the call to explain the legal term, but my understanding is Belfast will lead on this and other parties are entitled to join. But as the lead council, Belfast, the finance element falls to Belfast. Stephen, is Philip on the call?
Yeah, Chair, I'm on the call if necessary.
Do you want to contribute to any of that, or
Chair, I'm assuming that what is being proposed by way of this motion then is that if proceedings are entered or are started, commenced by Belfast City Council, that they will, as part of their proceedings, indicate who they believe notice parties to the proceedings should be. Those notice parties would include those councils that have got involvement with ports, which would be primarily Mid and East Antrim, Newry, Morning Down, Derry City and Strabane District Council. And those councils would then, whilst not actually being a party to the proceedings, would have the opportunity of making representations to the court during the course of the proceedings. So I'm assuming that is what is intended by this notice of motion, that we would participate as a notice party to the proceedings rather than as in the applicant for judicial review itself.
Okay, thanks for that clarity, Philip. So the next indicated speaker is Councillor Harkin.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, look, we don't think that Minister Poots has a mandate for what he's doing. It has very little support, and the vast majority of people have no problem with the protocol. Where they do see problems, they want to see them ironed out and smoothed out and sorted out. They don't want to see a situation that is a crisis produced as a result of the protocol. So that has to be at the centre of what we say about this. In terms of the financial stuff that the DUP are saying, I've looked into that as well. It seems like they're just pulling figures out of thin air, and there's no basis in reality for it. So I'm glad to hear that's being challenged as well. And look, this is about the DUP being in crisis, and they're willing to burn the house down to try and save their skins. And that's a disaster right now. You look at the challenges people are facing in terms of the cost of living crisis, energy prices going up, and this is the DUP's response, is to try and avoid doing anything about that and burn the house down. And really, there's been an ongoing attempt here over the last year, whether it's been Barnes, Hoey, Jamie Bryson, others, trying to feed into this kind of sectarian narrative to kind of really try and divide people right across the north and whip up, we've seen sectarian violence. And this just seems to be a continuation of that effort, all because the DUP are worried about the next election. And what the First Minister Given has done is exactly the same. There's no difference here. This is all a part of a political stunt by the DUP. And the last thing that they're interested in is putting the interests of the vast majority of people from all our communities first. So, we'll have no problem supporting this motion because there's no mandate for what the Minister's doing.
Okay, Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair, for letting us on, because like others, I'm not a member of this committee, but Chair, I would have some concerns with the motion for a number of reasons. One is has checks been withdrawn? I'm not sure they have. I think they're still continuing. But my main concern would be this line around legal obligations negotiated by the British government. And as a Republican, Chair, I don't believe that the British government have any legal obligations in the country of Ireland to be doing any negotiating when they don't have the support of the entire people, and they never had. And I wouldn't, as a Republican, like to be falling into the trap of allowing anything that the British government has negotiated in Ireland as being a legal obligation, Chair. And I think that Republicans in this chamber here need to be careful of what they're actually voting for, or those that support a United Ireland need to be careful of what they're voting for, because legal obligations given weight to what the British government have negotiated here in Ireland by force shouldn't be tolerated. Thank you, Chair.
Alderman Ramsey.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I don't think anybody's surprised that we're voting against this here, but people just aren't getting what the DUP are complaining about. They really aren't, because the protocol, they say, is the best of both worlds, and they're still saying it. Still being sent out there yet that it's the best of both worlds. Well, the best of both worlds for Northern Ireland would be unhindered access to and from the rest of the UK goods market, full beneficiaries of UK trade deals under the UK state aid regime, unhindered access to and from the EU goods single market, full beneficiaries of the EU trade deals What Northern Ireland in fact has got is half membership of the UK goods market, only part inclusion in UK trade deals, out of the UK state aid regime, in the EU goods single market, excluded from EU trade deals. This economic situation means the business losers, the majority of Northern Ireland companies that are UK focused, outnumbers the winners, the majority that source from the Irish Republic or are EU focused. With Northern Ireland consumers, the real victims, as they lose choice, face higher costs and UK-wide pricing policies under threat if the protocol ever becomes fully operational, as Brussels and Dublin want. In other words, the current disruption caused by the Northern Ireland Protocol is just a base camp for chaos, and the regular implementation is obviously going to cause that. One economist has estimated the protocol will cost Northern Ireland 900 million a year, but what is certain is the UK government is spending millions every week on a sea border through administrative costs. Money that could be spent on Northern Ireland's skills deficit or decent roads in southern Scotland for Northern Ireland goods to get to the GB market is where this money could be going. But why escalate? Everyone wants solutions. The EU and even Alliance, Sinn Féin, Greens and the SDLP, who began by demanding the rigorous implementation for the protocol, they all backed, now claim to want solutions. Do they really? That's the big question. And that is the issue. That's what we're complaining about. We are not getting a good deal with the NI protocol, and it's not even implemented in full yet. This is going to be a disaster for Northern Ireland if people don't unite against this protocol and have it amended to suit everyone. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to bring in the final indicated speaker, two speakers, and then I want to ask Stephen to take this to a vote. Sorry, Councillor Raymond Barr.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, the DUP objection to the protocol is political. It's not based on economics. The withdrawal from the executive is a stunt and an attempt to make up lost ground before the next election. The dogs in the street know that. Their failure to bust their street protests against the protocol has led them taking the steps they've taken. I'll be supporting the motion.
Okay, final speaker, Councillor Donnelly.
I'll get Chair. Keep this short and sweet. Councillor Gallagher has already outlined some of the concerns. As a Republican, the violation of Irish sovereignty by the British government cannot be given any legal right. No self-respecting Republican can pick and choose parts of it that they, I understand that some of the sentiments around this and what's going on, but it could have been worded an awful lot better. I can't support this.
Okay, Stephen, can you take a vote, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, Councillor Jason Barr.
Or Steve.
Councillor Raymond Barr.
Or.
Councillor Shauna Cusack.
Or.
Alderman Morris Devaney.
Against.
Councillor Gary Donnelly.
Against.
Councillor Rory Farrell.
Or.
Alderman Darren Guy.
Against, Stephen.
Councillor Sean Harkin.
For.
Councillor Conor Heaney.
For.
Councillor Patricia Logue.
For.
Councillor John McGowan.
For.
Councillor Kieran Maguire.
For, John. Stephen, sorry.
Thank you. Alderman David Ramsey.
Against.
And Councillor Lillian C. Nybar.
For.
Thank you. Chair, that's 10 for and 4 against.
Okay, that motion passes. So we're going to move on to the final item of Chair's business. Now, I would say just for doing this, Councillor Harkin raised this with me, but only within the last 4 hours, and I would appreciate, I'm going to allow it, given the nature of the issue that he's seeking to raise. But I would ask members that they give the proper protocol around notice to chairs in relation to the day before. So go ahead, Councillor Hargan.
Thank you, Chair, for taking this, and I appreciate it. And I think look, we should be talking about this, because it is instead of talking about what the DUP is doing in relation to the protocol, we should be talking and spending time talking about the cost of living crisis that people are facing right across the district, because that is the main issue. We every day we hear news now about rising costs. We hear that this is not going to end. That the energy costs are going up, as everybody knows. That all rent's going up, the cost of food's going up, and unfortunately, the response so far from government, from business, from regulators has been inadequate, to say the least, because it's given no assurance and no confidence to the most vulnerable in our communities, to workers, to organisations that are going to be hammered by these costs. It's given absolutely no assurance that there's going to be help. And instead, what we see is stories or reports about energy companies making huge amounts of money. And we see big corporations that profited handsomely during the pandemic, like the big retailers. Same thing. They've made a huge amount of money. And on the other end of this now, we're seeing ordinary people getting absolutely hammered. So there needs to be far more urgency than there's been in terms of action from Stormont, from Westminster, from the utility regulator, and from business as well. They have a role. They're not offering to put the huge profits that they've made into hardship funds. And this is the sort of urgent action that we should be calling for as representatives. I don't want to see working class families from all communities getting destroyed financially over the next year. I mean, more and more people are already in debt as a result of these rising prices. It's impacting people's mental health. And then we get this, instead of getting help, we get what's going on at Stormont, which is a DUP-inspired crisis, which has really, in my opinion, only exposed the fact that the executive has done so little to help people. So there's a protest happening here in Derry on Saturday, organised by the Derry Against Fuel Poverty group that's been recently started. I want to propose that we support the protest and that we promote the protest and that we encourage people to attend. I'm trying to send that right now to the group chat, but there seems to be a problem. So if you give me 1 second, Chair, I'll just pop that in there. Thank you.
While we're waiting on that, is there anyone want to second? Okay, Councillor Donnelly seconded. Okay, can we try and get that on the screen if possible? Philip or Stephen, can any of you have a view on the wording of the motion at this one? Could you come in now, please?
Well, Chair, and maybe if I can comment, the difficulty with the motion, certainly in terms of the last part of the motion expressing support, for the protest to be organised this weekend is that this committee doesn't have delegated authority in relation to this particular matter, and consequently this motion cannot be actioned until after full council at the end of the month, by which stage this protest will be over. So that would appear to be the practical difficulty in relation to the motion.
Okay, that causes a problem for taking this motion forward, Councillor Harkin. So I don't think we'll really take it. So we'll have to move on.
Chair, can I just raise an issue before we do that?
Okay, go ahead.
Look, we've what Philip is pointing out is correct, but look, I've been at many committee meetings where we voted on things that we all understand that the full authority of the council can only be given at the full council meeting, but nevertheless, we've agreed to support them on that basis. So I think we should move forward with a proposal as we've done in other cases. It's happening this Saturday. It seems to me the precedent has been set where committees have been able to vote to support initiatives in the past that otherwise the council wouldn't have been able to take a position on it. So I think we should be able to say, look, as a committee, we stand in solidarity. If we want to reverse that at the full council meeting, councillors will be able to do that.
Well, I'm uncomfortable with it, Councillor Harkin, given what Philip has explained. It's not a precedent I'm aware of, and I think you can, by all means, you've highlighted the protest, and people who wish to attend the protest should certainly do so. But I don't think we can take it as a proposal. So I don't propose to debate it, Alderman Hussey. So I'm going to just conclude on that, if you don't mind. All right, thank you. Okay, moving on. On the agenda item 7, which is the minutes of the previous Business and Culture meeting. Can I get a proposer for accuracy?
So proposed, Alderman Devaney, Chair.
Someone want to second that?
Second that, Chair.
Okay, I think I was Councillor Logue. So matters arising from previous minutes. I know Councillor Donnelly had indicated earlier in the chat that he wanted to come in on this. So you want to go ahead now, Guy?
Thanks, Chair. Chair, look, at the last meeting I had serious problems with my connection, and it was actually cut off. But it's just BC 9/22 regarding the partnership board. Chair, you know, the comments have been made, I think, by Councillor Cusick about the important balance and the right representation. And, you know, and I agree with that 100%. You know, great sentiments. But, Chair, unfortunately, the meeting went on to exclude almost 12.5% of its elected reps. 9 of the 12 places were taken by the 3 largest parties alone, and 4 independents and into were effectively excluded from the, you know, from a position on this, you know. So I just want to make a point, Chair. If that's getting the balance right, you know, I wouldn't like to see it when, you know, when it gets wrong. And I just think that, you know, this lip service about getting the right balance and right representation, I just can't let that pass. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Harkin, as matters wants to raise. Sean, you want to come on that item?
It's a separate item there, Chair. Is that all right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So look, we're going to hear from the Trades Council soon about the findings of their report and survey, and I think it was, as we know, pretty devastating. Many workers across the district said that they weren't able to pay their bills, 70%. And as people may know, the education welfare workers have been on a continuous strike for pay parity. They're striking again this week in this area, and they're taking their protest to Stormont as well. Such is the level of frustration and anger now that at the Education Authority and at the Education Minister, and indeed at Stormont as well. So look, what I was hoping to do today was to have our committee stand in solidarity with the education welfare officers and back their call for pay parity. And I'll put that in the chat group, Chair.
Okay, again, while we're waiting for that, is there a seconder for this?
I'll second it, Chair. Councillor Donnelly.
Just going to take much longer, Sean.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, the proposal is in the chat. Is there anyone wishing to comment or oppose what is there in the chat box in terms of this proposal? Okay, there's no indicated speakers, and also there's no one indicating that they're opposed to this particular proposal. So happy to say that it's passed, and we can move on. So that's all the matters arising from the previous minutes. If we could now move on to the next item on the agenda, it's the cultural grant aid results 2022-2023. I'm not sure who's taking this item. Is it Aileen?
Sure, thank you. So, members, the purpose of this report is to secure approval for the allocation of funding for culture grant programmes. These include cultural organisations, heritage animation, the Access Programme for Cultural Organisations, headline events, community festivals, and the Artist and Cultural Practitioner Award. Members, you'll recall previous reports to this committee securing the approval of the rollout of the cultural grant aid programmes. The funds were all extensively promoted, including by public notice, and council officers also hosted online information sessions to provide detail on the available funds. The Cultural Organisations Fund, so actually I won't go through that because I think members are fairly familiar there with the background and the purpose of each of the fund, but I'm happy to take any specific questions on them. The key issues, members, are the Cultural Organisations Fund is now in its second year, you'll recall, of a 3-year cycle, and members agreed in April of 2021 to the recommendation for the allocation of just over 195,000 to meet total value of eligible applications to the fund. To be met from the existing available grant aid budget of 192,000. So you'll be aware that fund wasn't actually advertised this year because it's in a 3-year cycle. Budget for Heritage Animation Fund, it was 83,600 for this current year, minus the amount there of 13,405, which is allocated to the heritage venues through the Cultural Organisations Fund. So obviously that's a rollover for 3 years. In this year, there were a total of 6 applications to this fund, all of which were eligible to apply. Total funds that have been allocated on the programme are 70,000, and a summary of the applicants for this fund is outlined in Appendix 2. To date, the threshold score has not been included in this fund due to the ongoing capacity issues in the sector. Following a number of capacity interventions delivered by Council and the increasing competition for this fund, it suggested that going for a 50% threshold will be introduced for this programme in which will be for the year 23-24. For the Access Programme, the total value of eligible applications was 71,000. We received from 3 venues who'd completed attendant access audits. A summary of these applicants is outlined in Appendix 3. We council retain sufficient resources to meet the eligible costs associated. However, as in previous years, officers will seek financial support from the Department for Communities to meet the costs associated with these projects. Total value of eligible applications to the headline event fund was 390,000. This total consists of 13 eligible arts and culture events and 1 eligible sporting event application. There were a total of 16 applications, 2 of which failed to reach the threshold mark in order to be eligible. With existing budgets of 205,000, of the 14 applicants, 11 would receive funding, with 1 of these only partly. A full summary of the applicants is outlined in Appendix 4 of the report. Members should note that in previous years an allocation of 30,000 was made to sporting events. As one of the sporting events did not achieve the threshold mark, it's recommended that the remaining funding from this pot be redistributed to the culture events pot of funding for headline events, so to enable the next eligible event to receive part funding, and it's this that's reflected in the appendix. The total value of eligible applications to the Community Festivals Fund was just under 167,000. There were 13 applicants to the upper fund, all met the threshold, and 11 to the lower fund, with only 8 meeting the threshold. With the existing council budget of 86, and 6 applicants receive funding on the upper and 8 on the lower. Full summary of the applicants is outlined in Appendix 5. As you'll be aware, members, we generally receive funding from the Department for Communities for a financial contribution towards this fund. We had no funding from DFC in 21-22. However, last year we contributed around 30,000 to the fund, but generally that has not been confirmed until into the financial year. So that is reflected in the results table. A total value of 19 eligible applications were received to the Artist and Practitioner Fund of £19,000. Members, there's previously an allocation of 16,000 from existing budget to this funding. Based on this budget, there'll be an award made to the top applicants. It's proposed that additional budget is drawn from member budgets in 2023, so that the remaining eligible artists also receive awards. This then would equate to a total fund of 19 to 19 local artists and practitioners. And again, a summary of the results is outlined in Appendix 6. Members should note that in the above, there are a number of events of value and quality that have met the threshold, but which the existing budget, within the existing budget, remain unfunded. There are 3 events such as this in the headline fund and only 1 part funded. There are up to 9 events in the upper level of the Community Festival Fund that have not been allocated funding. This is not allowing for potential Department for Communities allocation. The total cost of funding these events is around £116,116. Following discussions with the lead finance officer, it's anticipated that in-year savings will be available for the current financial year as a result of continued funding from government to cover all COVID losses, as well as additional rate support grant allocation. Although this being subject to confirmation of the current rate support grant allocation for the coming year. Council has accrued significant savings in full events budgets due to events not taking place during the pandemic. It is therefore suggested that to aid COVID recovery, and given that we have an unprecedented number of quality events for significant events in the coming year, that savings be allocated to these events that have met the threshold for this year only. You should note that while the increased number of applications this year is to be welcomed, it will increase the level of competition for what will likely be the existing allocation of money for the coming year. It will be important for all events to adhere to the conditions set out in the respective letters of offer and to reflect effectively the benefits of their events in next year's application process to ensure funding should they wish to continue. It's always recommended that groups and organisations seek feedback on their application, whether they're successful or not, to maximise the opportunity for funding. Officers are always happy throughout the year, as you know, to provide feedback and guidance in advance of the process. Proposed cultural grant aid programmes will be drawn from member approved rates-based budget across the culture department, and the proposal is that a one-off allocation is made to the events fund for this year only. Council officers, as indicated, will seek external financial resource for the Community Festivals programme and the Access programme. So members are asked to award the allocation outlined for a second year of the 3-year funding for the Heritage Animation and the inclusion of a threshold scope for 23. That should be 22-23 in line, or 23-24 in line with other fund programmes, to approve the award allocation for Access for headline events at Community Festival and to approve the allocation for the artist and practitioner fund. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Aidan. You're having some issues with your connection there, just to let you know, but I think we got the vast bulk of that. So there's a number of indicated speakers. So Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Aidan, for the report. I think this is a massive vote of confidence in our local arts and culture sector, and we as a council recognise, what they do for people across our city and district, and it recognises, the enormous value that we place on individuals, groups, and organisations from Colmore to Castleberg, and that's apparent in the grant allocation that were given to these groups and individuals, which totals nearly 700k. I think the fund allocation will help deliver an exciting programme of events and festivals in the coming year, which will enhance the cultural offering for local residents and will help to attract tourists as well. And it's no secret that the available funding was oversubscribed. And it's welcome news that it's anticipated that there'll be a news in year savings to try and fund all of the applications that met the threshold. So some members on here were at the working group, and we thrashed this out, and the consensus was that there were very worthy applications that met the threshold, but unfortunately the funding was exhausted. And we agreed as a collective that we go above and beyond to try and fund these really, really worthwhile events. So I've got one question in relation to the one-off allocation, and I know this is anonymised, so I'm not going to mention any specifics, but in relation to the one-off application, is the funding agreed and in place, or is it contingent on confirmation of the rich support grant for the coming year? Because a number of those allocations are time sensitive. So I would like some feedback on that. Is the funding in place now, and are all the groups and individuals going to get letters of offer, or is it contingent on confirmation from the Department for Communities on the rich support grant for this year? Thank you. Happy to propose on behalf of the SDLP, by the way. Thank you.
Okay, Aidan, I'm going to bring on the rest in case there's other questions, then you can come on at the end just to clear anything up. So Councillor Doyle.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Sorry, I wasn't too sure I'm on the train here. Can I just say to Aidan and our team, thanks so much for the work that you've put on over the last while. I don't think I'm breaking any confidentiality I've had conversations with Aidan about this, but my understanding is that it's very welcome to see that Feshter or Colmkill will have been allocated around £10,000, and that's obviously arising from the motion that I had put forward that was unanimously backed at full council very recently. And I have to say, take my hat off to Aidan and our team for meeting me and the
Councillor
committee.
Doyle, there's a reason why these papers are anonymised, and I'd appreciate if you don't be naming individual groups on a public meeting. So if that's what you were on to do, then I think we can end it at that, please. Councillor Logue is next, I think.
Thank you, Chair. And first of all, Aidan, thank you very much for that very detailed report. It's great to see that there are so many organisations that have applied for the grants, and that they all are of high quality. I think it's great that we as a council are able to, sorry, grandchildren in the background here. We as a council are able to support those, even though that the funding allocation that we have is lower than what has been applied for. But because of executive help that has come through the COVID monies and the obviously the rate support grant, which we are waiting confirmation, but hopefully like that is a given, that we are able to support all these organisations. And on the individual artists, I think it's great that there were so many applied, and that all of them will be getting a funding amount. So well done to them all, and thank you to you and all the officers for looking at all these applications. And I think it is important to say too that those organisations that do need help only have to ask, and that feedback is there and help is there in helping them to grow in the future. And but across the board, thank you all very much.
Okay, thanks, Patricia. Alderman Hussey.
Sorry, I just failed to mention, I put it in the chat, I would second that, so just that can be noted too, please. Thank you, Sarah, Chair.
Go ahead, Derek.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to come in. I welcome the work that has obviously been done by officers and those responsible for sifting through the assessment of the various programmes. It's particularly rewarding to see that the effort is being made to extend that funding to those who, having reached the criteria level, may not have received funding. In some cases, that's excellent. With regard to equitable distribution across the district, I accept what Councillor Farrell is saying. He knows because he sat on the assessment group. Some of the rest of us will not know the names of the group, and as you rightly have pointed out, Chair, they are anonymised for a reason. But can Aileen clarify when the names will eventually be put within the 6 programmes as to those who have been successful and those who have not been successful? So when will councillors who were not on the inside on the process be made aware of the names of all of the groups within all of the 6 programmes? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Derek. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and thank Aileen and the team for the piece of work that has been done here. And look, we have no problem in supporting the recommendation here that has come forward. And look, where the DEP are really, and I want to say just thank you to the working group as well, because those members who sit on, I know a lot of us don't know who got money, and at this stage we shouldn't be mentioning any group. But you know, I just want to say well done to the working group, because they have come to for myself and the party a good agreement here, that those who have reached the criteria will be funded, and we have to welcome where those funding processes the money came from. And you know, we talk about in-year savings. It's good once again, because you know the arts and culture community are a vital part of our community, and they play a vital part for our community across the whole council area, from Londonderry right to the Derg up into Castlederg and Killen as well. But no, we have no problem, Chair, in supporting the recommendation. Thanks.
Okay, I think that's everyone that's indicated. Aileen, do you want to come back on?
Yeah, sure. Happy to come back in. The lead finance officer has confirmed he's confident that we will be able to meet the additional spend. So I'm taking him at his word. We will be members will be aware that we do anonymise these. We do anonymise the names. I suppose that's twofold. One is really we're asking you members to approve the process. And we've worked very hard, as you'll be aware, over the last number of years to have a very robust and transparent process. It's fair to all of the applicants, and indeed it's fair to members who are asked to take this decision, which can sometimes be very difficult. And in the hands of the additional investment this year, I'm sure all of the members of the working group will appreciate that would have been an exceptionally difficult task. So I suppose we ask you to. That's why we're asking you to take these decisions anonymously. The other reason, obviously, is that we feel it only fair to the groups that we inform them, because obviously, while the majority of applicants this year are getting good news. There are times when people don't get such good news, as you'll be aware. So it allows us to inform the groups and to work with them, to to support them, whatever the outcome of that. As soon as we do that, which should be fairly soon, we obviously this decision has to be ratified at the end of the month. But we generally, once it's passed today, we generally start to inform the groups. So as soon as we do, we are more than happy to circulate a list of the recipients, an anonymized, I suppose, set of tables to all the members. So we're more than happy to do that, and you'll be aware that we would have done that in previous years.
Okay, thank you. And you going back on, Councillor Farrell?
Did I get everybody? Did I answer everybody? Just on another wee piece of information. Just I know Councillor Farrell referred to the invitation to Department for Communities officials earlier in the meeting. Just to give an update, we are expecting those officials to attend at the April Business and Culture. So I understand we're working with committee section just to get that date, but we sent that letter and they've confirmed they'll attend, and we're hoping for April.
Okay, I trust that deals with your issue, Councillor Farrell, or is there something else?
It doesn't actually. Well, Aideen, first of all, that's really welcome news that DFC officials are going to be here in April. Brilliant. Really looking forward to that discussion. In terms of the letters of offer, once this is ratified at full council, are we saying that it's not contingent on confirmation of RSG, or it is? Because again, I'm not going to break the confidence of the sort of private discussions around this, but will every group that we have basically said you're getting funded, will they get letters of offers shortly after full council? Because some of them are time sensitive. So I'd appreciate a bit of clarity on that. I understand you mightn't be able to give me the answer that I would like, but if there could be just that rich support grant clarity, are we waiting on confirmation, or can we fund this without that confirmation? Thank you.
I understand that technically we are waiting for that now. We do have a little bit of time, and it will be towards the end of the month and the beginning of March. So the finance officer didn't give me any cause for concern. He seemed confident that he would be able to meet it. I'm hoping that he'll meet it elsewhere. So I'm assuming we'll be okay to award that money. He didn't indicate that there would be an issue, or that he was concerned about that. Now, obviously, the DFC money that happens every year. The allocation into community festivals, generally that's into the new year. So we would have previously worked, and I think we would have asked members for your approval to allow us to work with groups to manage that timing wise, because sometimes that allocation isn't confirmed until maybe into maybe in as far as May or June, but we can always manage that within the date. So we would have worked with groups on that in the past. So we do wait for that, but I understand that we're all set with allocating the additional investment.
Thank you, Aideen, for all that. So I've never anybody opposed to that. It's been proposed and seconded, so I take it that now passes. So moving on to item 9, and Kevin's taking this item.
Yeah, that's right, Chair. Thanks very much. Members, the purpose of this report is to update you on the potential revenue implications to facilitate free parking for disabled users at Council's off-street car parks. This came about as a proposal at previous committee, where officers were asked to scope this out, and also to update you in terms of some issues in relation to the repair work to be completed at some of those car parks. In the report, it's fairly self-explanatory in relation to the costs. I would draw your attention, as part of this exercise, we did check across all the other 10 councils to understand what their practice was in terms of the fee-paying car parks. No other council operates free parking for disabled users at their fee-paying off-street car parks, but it should be borne in mind that council obviously operates 32 off-street car parks in total, and obviously not all of those car parks are fee paying. So a substantial amount of free spaces are obviously available at the non-fee paying car parks. So the table sort of on 3.1 highlights the cost implication. So I mean, in trying to look at revenue, you know, we look at the total potential revenue, and based on the 2021 sort of figures, you know, you're talking about a revenue implication of about just over £57,500. So look, that would be the revenue implication of that. I would also draw your attention to the fact that the off-street car parks themselves are at that point now, which we had talked about previously, where a lot of them require, you know, substantial remediation, maintenance, even complete resurfacing at this stage. So we do have a budget allocated of 316,000, and that is ring fenced. And we're awaiting our council's capital development team to allocate full project management support to be able to deliver on that. Obviously, those costs were done in 2021, so potentially there could be an increase in some of those costs given the inflation costs, construction costs, and that type of stuff. So that needs to be borne in mind. So what we've tried to do here is outline a number of options for members to be able to look at. Clearly, if members were minded to introduce this measure, the rates impact would be about 0.1% of a rates impact. So that would obviously maybe need to be taken into account either in this rates process or a further one. Also, members could look at the potential to increase prices for other car parking spaces to offset the lost income, or to look at no loss of income by leaving the current fee structure in place and reviewing in line with an overall pricing review over the next 12 months. So the recommendation is that members are asked to note the contents of the report and they look at the options outlined within it.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Alderman DeVenis, and the kid this week. Go ahead, Horace.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and I thank Kevin for bringing this forward. It was an issue I raised at a previous meeting and around car parking for those with disabilities, and I did believe that there is, you know, my thoughts that there, you know, and I'm not saying that people with disabilities can park all day. It would never be part of any agreement going forward, but at least they should be allowed, in my opinion, they could be allowed a 2-hour grace 2-hour period. They have to be moved then. But Kevin, looking at the figure here, and I've been talking about it all day, this is the maximum figure if we were working at our car parking spaces for disabilities at 100%. And now I park fairly often in the city, and I go and get my ticket. And many of the time I'm in parking in areas and I see, you know, the disabled bays not being parked in. And look, so I don't believe this could be an accurate figure. Look, if we were even to take 25% of that, if there was 25% downtime, that there was no car parking spaces, you know, the figure would be greatly reduced. I take on board your issue and around the 0.1 on the rates, but you know, just in our previous recommendation here, you know, there was in-year savings found, and I welcome them. I don't have a problem with that there, but I do believe some of this could be the strain could be taken up by in-year savings, and I do believe that, look, you know, for those people who, I know we talk about people in very, very difficult times. We've heard proposals here about protests, about oil, or heating, or energy, and, you know, fuel poverty. And this is just, it was a proposal coming from myself, Chair, to support those people with disabilities, to encourage them back out into our shopping centres and shops in the city, and, you know, where, and villages as well, where we have disabled car parking. And I thought, you know, I think we're leaving those people with disabilities, we're doing them an injustice here by ruling it out completely. I also take on board that there are talks about potential increased prices For other car park users, I don't think that is the right way to go down either, because once again, we're in difficult financial times coming out of COVID, and we all know the strains. So we're sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul, which I don't think, Chair. But look, I would just like really to question and around that figure. I know that's taken it 100%, and I would be fairly confident to say that our disabled car parking facilities do not take up the full 100%. And I do look at it there, that's taken on a 10-hour day, and it's the maximum amount on each and every one. But I just would like your comments on it, Kevin.
Kevin, before you bring you back on just on that, can I just come on briefly myself, just on behalf of our party, just in terms of the three options that you've outlined? I could say our preferred option would be the third. So just to put that down as a position from us, and we can hear from our speakers. So, Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Kevin. I was sort of expecting Alderman Devaney to make a proposal there, but it didn't come. And I fully understand the rationale and the reasoning behind his initial proposal that got us here in terms of exploring that option. But I think the timing is unfortunate, and I think the timing is also problematic. Everybody is aware that we're in the middle of a very complex rates discussion, and any proposal which would seek to reduce council income by potentially £60,000 would further complicate that delicate process. So, like the chair, and specifically the Chantallo Health Centre, the sooner the better with that, because there's car parks across the city and district that are in urgent need of attention. So the sooner we get movement on that, the better. So option 3 is our preferred option. Thank you.
Okay, Kevin, there's no further indicated speakers in the chat, so if you want to come in and respond to Morris, and we'll try and conclude this.
No, look, I mean, I take on board what Alderman Devaney is saying in relation to the maximum. The issue for us is that we don't have the way data is collected in relation to car park, and it's not smart data. It's revenue based on tickets issued either online or from the machine. So it doesn't tell you where people, what spaces they're parking in. So it's very difficult to give a completely accurate picture in terms of the disabled parking usage within our car parks. So that's I couldn't even make a guesstimate around what the percentage capacity is. What I will say is that obviously within city and town centres where the paid car parking is, there is no paid car parking in rural areas from an off-street car parking perspective. But within the city and town, there is obviously also disabled parking bays on an on-street basis, which are free. And that's not to say that that's there's the right amount or they're in the right areas and that type of thing. I think it's obviously for a wider discussion, and that's certainly something that could be and should be looked at. Our intention is in line with some of the developments in relation to City Deal and how we take that forward as they look again at our car parking strategy generally, and we'll be able to do that review. The overall pricing review was included within the draft car parking strategy, and we'll bring that back after obviously the rates process concludes for this one, but it should be coming back in the next couple of months. So if that gives any reassurance, and disabled parking bays is obviously a key part of that.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Derek, I'll bring you into to get a query, but then I want to try and bring this to a decision. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Kevin, on 3.2, the physical condition and the establishment, I suppose, of the project management on that. 3.2 is saying that March this year, we should have presumed the project teams in place. What's the timeline after that? When can we expect to see work going, being undertaken within car parks that have been identified. And the director, Stephen, knows that I had done a wee walk around with him in one particular, well, a couple of particular car parks in Castleterg, and I'm sure other councillors have similar concerns in their own areas. So once the project management team is in place, what sort of timeline are we looking at?
So, I mean, in relation to the
Kevin, just
project,
before you come in, well, sorry, go ahead, and then we're going to move on to the decision. Thanks.
as soon as we get the project management support in place, we can very, very quickly. A lot of work's been done to date in relation to trying to get to do the surveys and that type of thing. We will have to look at potential traffic management plans and this type of thing. But as soon as we get the resource available to us, there'll be no delay in terms of getting the contract documentation together and getting this getting the show on the road. I mean, our hope is that we will certainly have work underway by the start of the summer, end of spring, that type of period. We are, as you know, we've an ambitious capital program, and we like many organizations, we're finding it very difficult to get the right resources in the right places at the right time. So this is just part of that issue in terms of the capital management type of stuff. But we are pushing this as hard as we can to get this done. And in relation to Chantallo, if there's something from a health and safety perspective, we have intervened and been able to do short-term interventions in advance of this longer-term sort of project.
I appreciate the answer, Kevin. Be in touch at the end of it, really.
Okay. I know Alderman Devaney's looking back on, but I just Councillor Farrell has proposed 5.13, and I'm happy to second that. So as you're coming in, Maurice, I appreciate it if you could express a position on that proposal.
Look, I thank Kevin. I wanted to come back in just to respond to Kevin. Kevin, I think we're both agreed that the figure here, may not be accurate. So we're not really sure on what the ask is, Chair. And my worry is we're looking at a figure here of 57,000. It may only be 25. It may only be 30. If the capacity wasn't up to 100%. So, Chair, I'm going to propose that we defer this to see if it can be funded through savings.
Well, the proposal on the table is the one here now to accept 5.13, which would allow, if my understanding is correct, the time to get clarity on the issue that you've raised. So if you're expressing opposition to that, we may have to put that to a vote and deal with it that way. So, Stephen,
we will be against the number 3.
Okay, that's fair enough. Well, Stephen, do you want to take this to a vote, please?
I will, Chair, but just one point of clarity, just in terms of what the Alderman Devaney has said. I mean, this is clearly an annual cost, so therefore it couldn't be funded out of savings. It would have to be funded on an annual basis. The paper previously is a one-off, and as Aileen quite rightly explained, that we found a savings to fund the additional ask in 1 year, but it will not continue into the following year. If we were to fund this, and I appreciate what Alderman Devaney is saying, but there is no way of us getting an accurate figure for it, and that's shown as best a figure as we can based on the usage of the car parks. But it couldn't be funded out of one-off savings. It would have to be funded annually if this was to be agreed. So the prudent response for us is to say to look at it in the round and to take the recommendation as we have suggested. But just to make clear, it's not a one-off saving that would have to be found. It would have to be found every single year to fund this cost.
Just a point of clarity on that, Chair.
Right, go ahead, Maurice.
I take on board that for the 1 year effort, but after that it could be funded through our rates if needed be. That's what it's working on, because I think that's what Kevin said. It couldn't be funded. It was difficult to fund it the year through the rates, but it could be looked at in another year.
Okay, Alderman Gary, before we take this to a vote.
Okay, Chair, just briefly, I was willing to back Councillor Devaney's call for the free parking for the civil parking base. However, listening to the discussion there and what Stephen has says and what Kevin has says, I believe that probably the best way to take this forward is to go with Councillor Farrell's proposal. I have a few ideas of myself. I'm not going to bore you with them tonight because it's across a couple of committees, but I'll come back to you on that there. But obviously, if we're looking at reviews and so on, it can be tied on with that as well. So thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Stephen, can you go ahead and take the vote then? We'll conclude this.
Thank you, Chair. So Councillor Jason Barr.
For, Stephen.
Councillor Raymond Barr.
For, Stephen.
Councillor Shauna Cusack.
For, Stephen.
Thank you. Alderman Morris Devaney.
Against?
Councillor Gary Donnelly.
For.
Councillor Rory Farrell.
For, obviously.
Alderman Darren Guy.
For.
Councillor Sean Harkin.
For.
Councillor Conor Heaney.
For, Stephen.
Councillor Patricia Logue.
For.
Councillor John McGowan.
For, Stephen.
Councillor Kieran Maguire.
For, Stephen.
Alderman David Ramsey.
Against.
And Councillor Lillian Sinai Barr. Okay, Chair, that's 11 for and 2 against.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. So that item passes. So can we move on to the next agenda item 10? I think Kevin's taking this one too. So go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, that's me, Chair. So members, the purpose of this report is to give you an update in terms of the performance of the 2021 Walled City Market over the Christmas period, and just to highlight some of the forward plans for the 2022 period. You can see within the report, we've highlighted some of the statistics around the 2 markets that took place around that Christmas period last year, and you can see the breakdown in terms of the proportion of traders and that type of thing. What we've done in the report is try to provide some of the feedback that we got in our post-project evaluation, and also within the appendices, the footfall statistics. I suppose really the picture is that, you know, obviously in 2020 we didn't have the opportunity to run our annual market due to COVID restrictions, and I think that the traders and the public in general really appreciated the fact that we were able to bring it back in 2021, and that, albeit that it was a reduced in terms of scale and the length of it, and some of the offering due to the restrictions and due to just an uncertainty even from a trading perspective about committing to the market. You can see the feedback was very positive in relation to the market itself. So it's, you know, the team are obviously really excited by the fact that we are hopefully venturing into a kind of a new era in relation to trading. And what we've done here is we've highlighted the normal Walled City market schedule itself, which is generally the first Saturday of every month across at Guildhall Square. We've also highlighted where the market will potentially support the really exciting events program that's planned by council. And then we've also put in some of the other additional market trading opportunities that we hope to offer. Now, some of this obviously is contingent on any restrictions that may or may not return. Hopefully doesn't. But I think it shows you the ambition that we have from a market trading perspective in 2022. So the costs for the Christmas market are highlighted there, and the recommendation is that you note the contents of the report and endorse the proposed schedule for 2022.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Councillor Cusack's indicated to speak.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Kevin, and thanks to the team. And you know, your work at Christmas and what you've put on, it never fails to disappoint, despite all the huge obstacles you have had. You did create a magical wonderland there for children. I can't believe we're actually talking about Christmas. Just it seems like yesterday, so we're talking about next Christmas. It's a bit scary, but I understand. Obviously, all this has to be put in motion well in advance to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's crossed. The feedback was really positive there. That was great. Noticed some of the stats coming back. Good that the traders got to say, you know, when they preferred, which was weekends, which I think definitely worked better than the 4 consecutive days as we had done before. And it is a case of trial and error with this, because, you know, obviously we're not going to get everything right, but, you know, working and building on the things that do really, really work well and that the public react to positively and feeds back in. So thanks for the work on this. I'm not going to speak too long, but, you know, the work you just do is always fantastic. It is so much appreciated by ourselves and the people out there. And hopefully things will be, you know, getting better as we go along, and hopefully Christmas will look a lot more normal this year than it did in previous years. Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And look, thank Kevin for the recommendation here. No problem in supporting it. Look, when we look back, what was delivered last Christmas in a very difficult time, we look forward to better times as we move forward to next Christmas. And it's hard to believe we're looking at next Christmas. Just reminds me of my grandson. He was out with me one day last week and he saw a toy in a shop and he just asked me, he says, when does Santa come again? I says, next Christmas. So here we are talking today about next Christmas. But look, just have to put on record our party's thanks for all the work that has been done, and you know, the very proactive thinking here on how we're moving forward. And look, it's very innovative. And as the previous speaker has said, look, it is trial and error. And look, a lot of it will be judged on where the COVID situation. But I do hope that we're moving on. But Chair, and look, if it needs a proposer, I would propose no problem proposing the recommendation here. The good work, and welcome the good work that has been done, and may it continue.
Okay, thanks for that, Morris. Alderman Hossain.
Thank you, Chair. I was beginning to worry there. I thought we were chatting about the Park Shopping Centre, who are saying sorry for their early Christmas advertisements. But you know, congratulations to all in the department for what they're doing here. And I particularly welcome the expansion into the other market opportunities that is talked about. Now, I will, and of course, as this is to be expected, I'm concerned that we're specifically looking at the 2 urban centres when other opportunities exist. And I'm wondering, is there the potential, for example, the Apple Fair in Castlederg, which is tied in to the overall, or should be tied in to the overall Halloween programme, the market opportunity that's presented on that Friday, Saturday, in Castlederg, can that be brought into the programme as a market opportunity that should be considered or explored? And on top of that, there are quite a few other smaller communities where I have heard folk chatting about the potential or the possibility of a small Christmas market in their own settlement. Can something like that be scoped out within the overall programme, moving the market scenario forward? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Logue.
Thank you, Chair. No, just to welcome or to thank officers for the work that was done last year under the circumstances, and to propose or second this item this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. Kim, do you want to respond before we move? It's obviously there's no one speaking against this, but just if there's any response to Derek, you know.
Yeah, no worries, Chair. So it's the, you know, look, the markets obviously grew out of the establishment from a walled city market perspective, and you know, the infrastructure that we have basically services has an ability to service one location at any one given time. That's basically, we have a certain amount of stalls which we have, and we, you know, so we work with that. So what we try to do is we try to distribute that where we can, if they're, you know, across different locations at different times. So we do that. Now, the one thing I will say is that, look, the market is, like, from, you can see from the survey, it's a very democratic. I'm going to say that from a trader's perspective. So where the traders come to us and they have, well, there's demand, basically, we try our best within, you know, constraints of budgets and all the rest of it to facilitate. So, you know, without promising the sun, the moon, the stars here in this committee, I would say that, you know, if there's a demand from a trading perspective and we've got the infrastructure and there's budget, we can certainly consider other options. Ultimately, this is about trying to create, you know, economic value for these really independent, so often new businesses, often sole traders, entrepreneurs, you know, people that are doing this on a part-time basis and that type of thing. Ultimately, that's what it's all about from a market trading perspective. So happy to maybe take it offline and have a discussion about it and see, or ask our markets development officer to have a discussion about it to see where we can go with it.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. So, like, it's been proposed and seconded, no one's expressed any opposition to it, so we'll take that item as passed. The next 4 items, that concludes items for decision, and the next 4 items are on for information. I'm going to take those as a block. And if anyone wants to indicate they want to come in on any of them, then please do so now. And I see Councillor Farrell would like to speak to item 12, so go ahead, Rory.
Thanks, Chair. So item 12 is about the forthcoming Illuminate Festival that we have coming up over 2 sort of long weekends in the very near future. And I'm personally really looking forward to it. It promises to be an exciting event that really showcases our beautiful city. And it's going to be a spectacular event for locals and visitors alike, and I hope it does attract a lot of tourists. And you know, you've got the projection shows at St Colum's Hall, St Colum's Cathedral, the walls, the Guildhall. We've got an illuminated trail of light around the walled city, and we've got a number of music performances as well. So I'm confident that the team have done an excellent job preparing for this. And I'm confident that it's going to be a resounding success. So we welcome the £450,000 that's coming from Tourism Northern Ireland to actually fund this event. And we are hopeful that this funding arrangement becomes recurrent, and that we can have this festival as an annual event on our cultural calendar. So really looking forward to it. It promises to be brilliant, and hopefully everybody across the city and district can enjoy it. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rory. So no one else has indicated, so that moves us into conflict. Can we have a proposer and seconder to move us into conflict?
Proposed, Chair Alderman Devaney.
Seconder.
Farrell.
Okay, that's that. So can committee section now take us offline now and let us know when we are, and we can move into confidential. Thank you.